Hello, dear Polymer Clay enthusiasts. I'm Mihaela from Learn Polymer Clay, and I'm back with more inspiration for your work with polymer clay. For today, I have prepared a new tutorial that I hope will inspire you to use up your scrap clay and in the same time make beautiful polymer clay pieces. In this tutorial, you are going to need seal screens, foils, and of course polymer clay. Let's dive into the tutorial. I'm working with scrap clay that I have previously conditioned, mixed into a solid color and then passed through a medium setting of my pasta machine. Then I applied a Peacock seal screen on top of the polymer clay, and I'm going to use pearlescent blue, a darker blue and a green acrylic paints. And I'm also using my blade, which is not maybe the best option to spread the paint on top of the seal screen, but this works great for me. So when I can't find an applicator, I'm just using my blade. And then you'll just have to remove the seal screen and immediately wash it with warm water and liquid soap. So I let the paint dry. Then I applied copper gilding foil on top of a polymer clay sheet that I passed through the medium setting of the pasta machine as well. And I am going to use a tear shape cutter to cut pieces of polymer clay. I am going to cut tear-shaped pieces from the copper decorated polymer clay sheet, and then I'm going to cut using the same cutter. I'm going to cut out the pieces from the Peacock seal screen design, and I'm going to use the gilded decorated pieces to make a beautiful seal screen design with copper decorations. Initially I wanted to make a pair of earrings, but then I changed my mind, and I thought I should have cut too much out of the piece, and the piece was looking good, and so I decided to make a larger piece and just use the flexible blade to cut a free shape design. I wanted to mention the fact that I flipped the polymer clay sheet decorated with copper foil on the other side, because I don't want to damage the foil when I'm pushing the clay out of the cutter. And of course you can tweak a lot this idea. There are so many seal screens that you can use, there are so many colors, and even for the metallic foils you have a lot of choices. You have gold, silver, copper, you also have abalone, and maybe even more choices, I don't know. And then I decided to use the Edge and Pearl tool, the smallest one of the three, to make small embossed dots decorated with copper foil. And I like this technique very much. I like this tool very much, and I thought this would work great with the Peacock seal screen design. So I'm just using the etching pearl tool to cut through the polymer clay sheet. I'm making a rotary motion, and then I am applying this embossed dot on top of raw polymer clay. And because of the fact that I'm using a polymer clay sheet that has been passed through a medium setting, I've noticed that there was a lot of scrap clay around the tool, so maybe it's even better to work with polymer clay sheet that has been passed through a lower setting, lower than medium. And you should apply these dots on top of the raw polymer clay, not on top of the paint, and of course not on top of the copper foil. Raw polymer clay will stick to raw polymer clay easily. So you'll just have to, I don't know, play around with the cutout idea and the replacing of the cutout shapes with copper decorated pieces. And you should give a try to the etching pearl tool, because it is a great tool, and you can make very interesting decorations for your polymer clay pieces. And then I decided to use the largest from the series, the largest etching pearl tool, and place a larger embossed dot underneath the peacock. I should have been more careful because it is slightly offset, it's not well centered, but it's okay. And then I decided to make a larger piece, not earrings that I wanted to make initially. But first I am going to apply this sheet of polymer clay onto a base, and I'm very careful to press the copper decorated pieces into the base. And of course I have applied parchment paper on top because I don't want to leave fingerprints on my piece. And in the same time I'm pressing this upper layer into the base as well. And then I decided to use the flexible blade and make a freeform shape and cut out a freeform shape. When you are cutting using the blade, you'll have neat cuts. When you are cutting with a craft knife, you'll have to work more to smooth off the edges. But anyway, before putting your piece into the oven, you should check the edges and, if necessary, smooth them. And then you can bake your piece for 40 minutes at the temperature recommended by the polymer clay manufacturer. I wanted to show you that there are a lot of possibilities to add more interest to silkscreen design, just by playing with cutout shapes that you replace with copper decorated pieces. And I encourage you to try this technique. And then I baked the piece, and then I decided to make a silkscreen on the back of the piece as well. I'm using the same colors that I used for the front of the piece, but I'm not using the same silkscreen. I'm using a flower silkscreen. And of course, if you decide to use a silkscreen for the back of the piece, you should apply varnish to protect the paint. I'd say even 2 coats of matte varnish. So again, I applied the 3 colors of acrylic paint on the same blade, and then I just spread the paint around. And I really like this, the fact that by applying small bits of paint next to each other, you have a variety in the color. You don't have one color from one side to the other. You have several colors inside the pattern, and I like this transition. And of course, you should wash immediately the silkscreen with warm water and liquid soap. And then I let the paint dry. And don't forget to apply varnish to protect the back of the piece, because you are going to wear, or someone is going to wear this piece, and you want the beautiful pattern on the back to last in time as well. And then I flip the piece over and I applied diamond glaze. But for this piece I decided to apply a thin layer, a thin coat of diamond glaze. And you should be very careful and watch out for any air bubbles and take them away. Take them to the sides. You can you can apply the diamond glaze and then let it settle a little bit on top of the piece, and then you should check if there are areas where you should apply more diamond glaze. And in the same time be very careful to remove any air bubbles from the piece. And this is how it looks with the diamond glaze on top. So I'm really taking the time to check if there's diamond glaze all over the piece. And it was very difficult to capture this subtle resin-like look in the photo, so I decided to film a little bit this piece. Of course, if you are used to work with resin you will have a very beautiful effect if you decide to use resin on top of the piece. I prefer using diamond glaze because it dries easily, because it worked very well for me and weather conditions where I live, and because I like the resin-like finish of the pieces very, very much. I hope that you liked this tutorial. I hope that you were inspired to use up your scrap clay. Please press the like button if you liked the tutorial. Please share your impressions with me and stay tuned for more inspiration for your work with polymer clay. Thank you.